I'm Joanne Law, Director of Studies for Mediation Institute and co-founder of Interact Support. I'm on a mission to prevent violence by training and supporting dispute resolution practitioners. Mediation Musings is a series of conversations with mediators and for mediators. So if you're interested in dispute resolution, follow the channel. We're intending to update new recordings each week. Enjoy. Today I've got Fiona Kirkman, who's a mediator, a family dispute resolution practitioner and an accredited specialist in family law. She's based in Sydney and she's also now the co-founder of a legal tech startup. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what would motivate a lawyer and mediator to become a tech innovator. So thank you so much for joining us today, Fiona. Welcome.
Thank you, Joanne, and great catching up with you. We studied together a few years ago, and it's great to see your journey with the Mediation Institute. So thank you for having me on this podcast.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. And just for the listeners, Fiona and I actually did our FDR training together, so we've known each other for a few years now. Just to get a little bit of background, Fiona, how's your practice developed? Is there a particular area that you're working now with mediation?
Yeah, so I have been in the family law world for about 15 plus years now, since I was about 5, I'd like to say, but not.
It does look like that.
And I started my practice, Kirkman Family Law, just over 3 years ago now, and that has always been focused on resolution without court, helping separated families to reach resolution in relation to their parenting and financial issues without having a final court decision. So I focus on mediation and also do collaborative coach work, and that's what I now do exclusively, not the traditional family law work, even though I am an accredited specialist in family law and big background as a family lawyer.
Okay. Look, just for the listeners that aren't fully aware of what's happening in the collaborative scene, could you just give us a little bit of background on what a collaborative coach means?
So collaborative practice is similar to mediation, but mediation, you have the independent mediator and the parties, and you perhaps may have lawyers involved in the process, but if the matter doesn't resolve, then the matter may proceed to court, perhaps with the same lawyers. And in the mediation process, there's often breakout sessions. I know I do a lot of legally assisted mediations where the lawyers give advice, sometimes during the mediation process in private sessions, whereas in collaborative practice, it's instead of having this war of correspondence between lawyers, it's where the lawyers and a collaborative coach in most models come together with the parties and through a series of open meetings are focused on interest-based negotiations. And one of the hallmarks of collaborative practice is that all parties sign on that if it doesn't resolve, then those lawyers will not represent the parties in a court situation. And so some people see that as a negative, but I actually see that as a positive in that everyone in the team is focused on the resolution and working together as a team. And advice, instead of being given in private sessions, either prior to or during the mediation, is given openly through a series of meetings. And the correspondence is really limited, and the negotiations are all done through a series of meetings. The role of the collaborative coach is similar to the role of a mediator, but slightly different in that we're there to manage the collaborative process. It might be a meeting with the lawyers, or again, we may have separate meetings with the parties only. And there might also be other professionals such as financial advisors or child psychologists, etc., involved in the process. And everyone is trained in collaborative law, which is focused on interest-based negotiations, not a positional negotiation.
Oh, thank you. That was a very comprehensive summary, because I am still coming across people that haven't, mediators that haven't actually heard about collaborative law. So it is a really good process, particularly for those more complex matters where it's actually not that easy to understand the asset pool with trusts and all sorts of things where you kind of do have to sit down and talk it through.
Yes, and it's definitely gaining traction in Australia, and I think particularly for those complex matters, but not just the complex matters, all sort of areas where, and it sort of worked out on a collaborative groups meet together, so there's a good collegiate atmosphere between the professionals as well, whether mediators, lawyers, financial advisors, psychologists, etc. So
that's great.
So I'm passionate about resolution without court, and that's sort of my motto in my firm, Kirkman Family Law.
Beautiful, resolution without court. Yep, I like that. So I'd like to actually shift now just to look. So what are you doing with tech? And I do know a little bit about it because we're working with you and to try and help people to have a chance to experience some of the, the options of using technology, particularly around property family law. But I'd like to know what your what's your motivation, why you saw the need?
Well, I think the legal profession and the mediation profession is definitely changing, and has over the last 5 years. Gone are the days where IQ is sufficient as a lawyer, but also a mediator. You do need other skills. So I attended a conference last year with Mark Cohen, who's very big in the legal tech world, and he said IQ, EQ and legal tech are what is needed for the next generation of lawyers and professionals, etc. And I believe that dispute resolution is the way of the future. And that's why when I started my firm, it was interesting, 3.5 years ago, I had a lot of naysayers saying, oh, you can't just do mediation. You can't just do collaborative coaching. You need to do traditional family law. There won't be enough work. And I listened to some. I've done a lot of lecturing as well in the initial days as I was starting out, but I truly believed that mediation would gain traction, and it has over the last 3 years. It's really gained traction. Yeah. And I guess that seeing that and looking forward, I'm one who looks forward on what the likely trends will be in the profession. And like I did with mediation and seeing how there's a movement of, and even Justice McClelland yesterday at a mediation, an ADR seminar I went to, he said there's a tide of change towards dispute resolution. And with the legal tech, I see the same tide of change, and that what has been happening and what we've done for generations, as far as professionals, lawyers, mediators, etc., is changing. And the admin work from a commerciality perspective, but also the next generation, the millennials, we need to get on board with technology. And there's a lot of technology out there. And the good news for me is that whilst I'm definitely not a software developer myself, I have a techie husband, Tim Kirkman.
Yeah, and I noted that you had some foresight there to go out and select yourself a...
Yes, so I was quite lucky in that regard. So a year or so ago, a series of conversations around the kitchen table, thought it's time for us to make a move into the legal tech space, and that we had a good combination, me being the legal, Tim being the tech. And since then, we've somewhat become that couple in life and legal tech with our two products, which are Law Switch and Family Property.
Really, I think you're absolutely on the money with what you're thinking there about that trend. Even since we trained technology like video mediation, back then it was really very difficult to get anyone to actually want to do that. And now I know you do a bit of video mediation as well. It's not that difficult at all for people to be interested in doing some or all of their process that way. Particularly when there's logistic issues. So, okay, well, let's have a look at the two products and what it is, because I think people are interested in legal tech and where things are going. So, Law Switch, you're using some artificial intelligence there, which is pretty cool.
Yes, and we actually spoke at an artificial intelligence summit last year, which was quite interesting, along with lots of other conferences. But
that was the one overseas, wasn't it?
That was Legal Geek. We actually won Legal Geek, which was very exciting. Won a trip to London while I was sick in hospital, and found I won a trip to London, which really helped with the recovery, actually. Positive thinking and wanting to get over there. So we did have got quite a lot of recognition for Law Switch. It's quite an innovative product. It has chatbots. It's sort of designed with a chatbot platform, and it also has booking pages. And why we developed that is we were seeing that, at least in my practice as a mediator, I was doing a lot of admin, spending a lot of time booking appointments, advising lawyers as to my available dates for mediations, doing manual processes for intake sessions, and repeating the processes around client documents and intake processes, etc. And as my husband Tim says, repetition gives rise to opportunities for automation. And we saw that there was definitely opportunities to automate those processes, and Law Switch could really help with client engagement through your website, but also intakes and booking pages, etc. And so that product we launched at the end of February last year, February 2018. And we've really iterated that product as we've got feedback. But it's really designed to free you up to do more of the work you love to do as a mediator, by saving you time, helping you grow your firm, etc. And it's really designed to be a low-risk, low-cost product that can be a basic legal tech product that can be embedded on your website or in your emails, or you can send as a link to your clients to help with the admin work that you do.
And I can imagine, sorry, go on.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I can imagine that would be very attractive, particularly for sole practitioners and those that don't necessarily have or even want to have the volume to be having a full-time admin person. They're doing that repetitive work. So, yeah. Okay. And so, but family property, that's a whole different beast, isn't it?
Yes, well, but we actually had the idea for family property prior to Law Switch, and the brainchild behind family property is actually Professor Patrick Parkinson. He approached us, and we've had discussions around family property with him, and it's designed for family lawyers and family mediators. So there's two different parts of the product to really simplify the manual, time-consuming and repetitive aspects of doing a financial property settlement matter. Again, helping you to focus on the work that you love to do, i.e. mediating. So it really is designed to streamline the property settlement process, and the biggest feature is an interactive and auto-calculated balance sheet, and that can be used to help you model your financial proposals. So if it's a 50-50 split, you can put in that it's a 50-50 split and will automatically have a cash adjustment. You can compare what one party's offer is compared to the other party's offer, and you can generate reports from that, i.e. balance sheets, heads of agreement, a list of attachments, so you can attach documents to the specific items in the balance sheet, etc. So we're getting a lot of good feedback in the pilot, and I've of course been using family property in my practice, Kirkman Family Law, and it's been really helpful. It's really streamlined the process, and I find we can get to an outcome a lot quicker in the mediation process, and I'm not spending so much time in the admin with the calculator or the Excel balance sheet, working out the figures on paper or on the whiteboard or Excel, because it's all automated for me. During the mediation sessions, and the lawyers love it as well, because I do a lot of legally assisted financial mediations, and the parties can see it visually as to what would happen if I retain this asset versus selling that asset, etc.
Well, we're putting together the use of it in the training that we're doing for both the graduate diploma and the upskilling course that we've got for property mediation, because I think I really do see it as the way of the future. We will be teaching people with Excel as well, and sort of showing them how it's done on the board, but I really don't see why anyone would be using a whiteboard for property mediation anymore. It's just doesn't make sense to me, because it's unless it's the simplest of asset pools.
It can get quite complex, the financial matters, as everyone would know. And how I tend to use it as a mediator, just some tips, is that I will, after the initial discussions with the parties separately, and when they come together, I'll give my opening statement, hear from the parties. If there's lawyers, hear from the lawyers. Then I'll bring the balance sheet up on the screen. So I've got a smart board, and we'll go through the items in the balance sheet. So I've already obtained all the information in the intake, either from the parties or from sometimes their court documents, and I've pre-populated the balance sheet, and then I will go through what does party 1 say versus what does party B say, and compare where there's agreement and where there's a disagreement on that balance sheet, and actually have the documents there in electronic form to look at. Okay, well, why do you say the car is worth $3,000 and you say it's worth $5,000? Oh, let's look at those red book searches, and this is the difference in the red book search and why. So it's really useful in that initial stage to have that discussion visually as a team. Everyone can work through the balance sheet on the identity and value of the items, and then I will go through what the current, I guess, position is of the parties in the joint session. I often then, sometimes they may have a breakout session, and I'll start modelling proposals using the family property to model what both proposals are. And then once they reach an agreement, I'll bring everyone back to see what it looks like from a final financial effect of the agreement, and then you can automate the report and automate the final heads of agreement as well. And we're looking to do a schedule to an application for consent orders. to have those financial figures plugged in. So I'm obviously an advocate, but I'm somewhat biased because my husband and I have developed it. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be a mediator and a lawyer. And I think, yeah, it's interesting. We're part of the Alta Group, part of the Centre for Legal Innovation, and there's a lot happening in the legal tech world, as there is in the mediation world, particularly in family law with the Family Law Review and the courts merging, which was announced again recently and confirmed again recently. So it's an exciting time. I think we need to keep abreast of what's happening on both fronts, the mediation, family law and the legal tech.
Oh, look, it is absolutely critical. And I like, I actually wrote down what you quoted Tim as saying, repetition gives rise to opportunities for automation. But it also, I guess the automation gives the opportunity to integrate changes rapidly. Because that's what we're facing. We're expecting that there's going to be some relatively major changes, such as mandatory property mediation and whatever that looks like.
And I'm a strong advocate for that family dispute resolution should be mandatory for financial matters before the commencement of proceedings. And I think a lot of people in the area believe that will occur.
Yeah.
And the benefit of using a product like family property as well is we have some recommendations around what documents should be disclosed as per the rules, and the various factors like contributions and future needs and those things that should be considered, and information disclosed around those factors as well when looking at a property settlement. So, as you said, it helps streamline the process so that everyone in your mediation organisation can be on the same page and with the processes, and obvious benefit of saving you time, avoiding errors as well. I find so many mediations where there's calculation errors that mediators, lawyers, parties are doing. So, yes, it's good to have.
Oh, look, yeah, absolutely. If you're working on a calculator, it's very, very easy to make mistakes there. And it's very hard to pick them up because it's gone. Whereas, you can still get dyslexic on family property, but it's sitting there and you'll be able to see it much more easily than.
Yeah, and we say it's sort of focused on. You can focus on outcomes instead of spending time on admin. So that's what we as mediators, I'm a strong advocate for. As a business person as well, I'm finding this more and more. Focus on your strengths, and delegate your weaknesses. And I think we should be focusing on what skills we bring to the mediation as far as the empathy and active listening and being the ability to reframe, etc., instead of focusing on doing the admin side of the mediations.
Yeah. And I know that I suppose that social science side of things is really important to you. You've unlike many lawyers, you've actually did some studies in social science as well, and I know it's something that continues to be important to you to help. Not just see this as a transaction. It's much more than that for people, for the client.
And I think the ideal mediator does have those skills of the psychology, I guess, skills, the social science background, and understanding of separation and the grief process and the ages and stages of development of children and power imbalances, whether it's a parenting or financial matter, and of course family violence and how that impacts the negotiations as well. But I think equally the importance of a solid foundation of the legal principles around the parenting and financial matters is so important. And having a lawyer background, I recognised that I needed to spend, I think I did about 200 hours of training in that first couple of years in upskilling on the social science side. And I think that's really helped me as a mediator as well.
Yeah.
But I love learning, so continuing to learn. I've got your New Ways coaching on my agenda.
Yep.
So,
no, there's some really good content in that, and particularly with working with high conflict families, which is we're seeing more and more of as society develops. I'm not quite sure, but it's there's certainly an upward trend on high conflict. But I guess the other thing that I really like to ask mediators or to talk about is, any tips or ideas that you have for people that are starting out in the industry. If there's any thoughts there.
Well, apart from what I've said about having a good understanding of law and psychology and utilising the legal tech products that are out there to help with that admin, I think it's important to build a strong sort of cross-referral within the mediation and family law industry.
So
the Mediation Institute has a number of supervision groups, which are great. There's a number of Facebook groups. With Joanne and I are in a group that I recently started, a family mediation FDRP group, and
that's going really well. I think you've got some great people in there, and I will, if it's okay with you, put a link up for people, for mediators that would like to join that. So, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. That would be great, because I think the sharing of knowledge, obviously in a confidential way, but the human nature is very complex, and every matter is different, and different mediators have different skills. And I know I've conducted, I think I've got 500 plus hours in mediations now, and my clients have been very varied as well. Had those ideal clients where they're very amicable. You think, why are they separating? But very amicable, very child-focused, and they're a joy to assist. To, unfortunately, the more common clients for me are more the legally assisted financial mediation, where they've been in court for years. It's very acrimonious, and they're at a point where they just can't afford the costs of going to a final hearing. And everywhere in between, I've had matters with support people, interpreters, etc. And you learn a lot from every mediation you do, but sometimes it can be a lonely world, particularly as a sole practitioner.
Yes.
So the ability to collaborate with others in the industry and to support one another, like you do have those very difficult, as you said, those high conflict cases that can be quite emotionally draining.
Yeah. And you sort of second guess yourself and think, oh, should I have, and sometimes
would I have?
Yeah, and a little bit of validation and say, hey, they were tough. They were, that was them.
Yes. and it's a hard business where there's children's, and we know from the research that exposure to ongoing conflict can be so detrimental for children. And I'm obviously then therefore quite passionate about helping them resolve. And when it doesn't resolve, we have to realise it's sometimes they're just not emotionally ready to resolve matters. And that, there may be a different pathway. It may be that they mediate again. So we shouldn't see mediation as just one event, but be willing to offer multiple mediation sessions.
So is that something that you think really needs to get out to the community, that mediation can be with children, quite an ongoing process?
Particularly with young children who have just recently separated. I think sometimes they need to see what works and what doesn't work. I guess it's difficult because people want an outcome. And I think the skills as a mediator in parenting matters are quite different to the skills for financial mediation. But then there's the crossover as well. So I find, it's managing the emotions of the parties and sometimes the lawyers and support people, etc. But then, I do assist with helping with parenting plans and heads of agreements. So you've got to put the drafting hat on. So it's a very difficult role, and I think some people in society underestimate sort of the importance of the role of the mediator, and I think it is gaining more traction within the profession. I'm obviously a big advocate of mediation, and I commend you on your role in trying to be an advocate in this area and somebody who's promoting resolution without court and training up the next generation of mediators as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, look, I just think it's so important because if we can get in early and we can help people to resolve the conflicts, it's not going to escalate, and we won't have another generation of kids that are harmed by that exposure to living in a war zone, because that's it's what it's like for them if their parents are absolutely unable to work together. So when you talk about legal tech, you've got, with what you and Tim have developed, a solution to help people to manage their practice. So which is, I guess, where law switches comes in. Then family property is around managing the property mediation. Have you got anything else on the horizon, or you're going to?
I always have a lot of ideas. But after a very big year last year, from
you're going to consolidate
being at death's door to travelling the world, when we won the legal tech competition, I think this year's a more consolidating the projects we're currently working on. But that's why forums like the Family Mediation FDR Facebook group, we're trying to generate discussion on what do mediators need, what the platform would be helpful from a tech perspective, because definitely looking at how we can assist from a technology perspective, mediators, as one of our, obviously, an inherent interest in that, and the people who are going through separation. How can we make it a more timely, cost-effective and less stressful process for them? And yes, technology is not just the answer, but it may be one part of the puzzle that can help reduce the costs and streamline the processes so that they can focus on getting strategic legal advice and getting mediators in to negotiate the issues that they cannot resolve themselves.
How do people, if they are curious and would like to check it out and find out more, what's the best way for them to do that?
We've launched in March. If you mention the podcast, we can give you an exclusive offer.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. So mention Mediator Musings, and Fiona will make sure that you get the offer, which is going to give you a chance to try it out with real clients and make sure that you are happy and liking the product before there's anything to pay.
Yes. So let us know if you have any questions. We're keen to have you in the family property family, and wanted to extend that offer with our collaboration and discussions with Joanne and the Mediation Institute and Mediation Musings. So look forward to hearing from you.
Excellent. No, thank you. So and also Fiona's going to be coming to the national conference in April. And at the dinner on the 12th of April. So those of you that are coming to the conference, come and join us on Monday. So that's the night without any formal events organised for dinner, and have a chat about you know, any of the things that we've been talking about, if you're interested in the collaborative practice, it's certainly something that Fiona will be able to have a real chat with you, as well as the legal tech, which, as you can hear, she's very, very involved in. So,
yeah, really looking forward to that conference. It's I know you've got a stand in regards to video mediation, so I'm looking forward to learning more about that and how that proceeds. And
yeah, my husband's a bit techie, not as techie as yours, so he's setting up a listening post, and he's got all these fancy ideas. So
yes, I'm really looking forward to that conference. I think that's the big conference of the year for us as mediators.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's always some really, really interesting talks. So yeah, anyone that can get to Canberra in April, I think it would be a really good thing to do. But, okay, so look, thank you so much for your time. I'll put links through to the Facebook group, and if people want to join, so that's really for people that are working in the family law area, isn't it?
Yes. So yeah, that's FDRP's mediators who work in the family law space. That's for the Facebook group, and obviously family property is for family property mediations, but Law Switch is for all different areas of mediation.
Mediation and also lawyers, because probably a third or more of our members are also do have a law practice or associated. Anyone that wants to automate. Okay, well, thank you once again, and
thank you. Thanks, Joanne. Bye.
Thanks.